Okay, thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the Mount Anthony Union High School School District Board of Directors meeting. First order of business, I want to make a note that the agenda has the wrong date, so I want to correct that for the minutes. The meeting is Wednesday, March 20th, 2019, which is today. The agenda says 18, so want that noted. We did check with the school's attorney because that's how it went out. They advised that because this is your regularly scheduled meeting in your regular scheduled location on your regularly scheduled night, that we're okay to good to go, but we should note that in our minutes. First order of business, the reorganization of the board. That's why I am opening the meeting. Can I confirm that everyone who's been reelected has been sworn in?
Yes.
Yes? Thank you. Nominations are now in order for the chair of the Mount Anthony Union School District Board of Directors. Are there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Tim Holbrook for chair.
I'll second it.
Are there any other nominations?
Move closed nominations.
Do I have a second to close the nominations?
Second.
It is all in favor of closing the nominations? Say aye. Thank you. We have one candidate nominated. All in favor of Tim Holbrook to be the chair of the Mount Anthony Union High School School District, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone abstaining? Tim Holbrook, you are the chair. If you would come up here and join me and
Thank you all
proceed.
very much. I'll try to do my best.
You better.
As you know, this is our organizational meeting, and we have a few positions to fill. The first of those would be the vice chair. So I'll open the floor for nominations for
I'll nominate Leon Johnson.
Second.
We have a second to that. Are there any further nominations? Any further nominations?
Move closed nominations.
We have a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor of Leon Johnson to be vice chair of the MAU board for the next year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Congratulations, Leon.
Well, thank you, Dan.
Now we have the clerk. The clerk's job is a thankless one. He or she is responsible for writing letters, carrying on other correspondence that the board directs that individual to do. We've been well served by Ron over the past year, so I will open the nominations for clerk.
I'll nominate Ron.
Very good. We have a second?
Seconded.
We have a second. Are there any other nominations for that position?
Move closed nominations.
Thank you. Second to that?
I second
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All in favor of Ron to be our clerk signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Congratulations, Ron. Thank you very much. Now we have the SVSU appointments. I always want to be sure that I get this right. Did anybody, we have two with an alternate, or do we have three with an alternate?
You currently have two with an alternate.
Two with an alternate. This is an important position. It'll be particularly important as we go into the consequences of Act 46. I noticed a couple letters that came in, or notices that came in from the State Board of Education saying that a member of our SVSU will be involved in a lot of decisions. I'm not exactly sure what they are. So it's an important position, and I would open the floor for nominations for people to be our representative to the SVSU. Are there any individuals on this board who would like to be part of that?
I'm gonna go back.
Leon, Fran, anybody else that would like to be on that?
I'll be an alternate.
Okay, so we have, are there any other, is there any other interest among those board members present? I've spoken with Nelson, Dave, and Amy, who are not here this evening, asking them if they wanted to be in a position, elected position from this board. Nelson and Dave, as you know, are now representatives at the state government and feel that that is going to be a very time-consuming position, and they just as soon not feel that they have to perform the responsibilities of an SVSU member. So neither of those two are interested. Amy is not interested. She has kids in school, and she's going through a number of different things with those kids. And she wants to be on the board, wants to be active, but just as soon not have one of those positions. So what we have now on the floor are two representatives to represent MAU at the SVSU meetings. Those would be Fran and Leon, and we have Ed as an alternative. Are there any other nominations for that position? If not, I move, Fran, close the nominations.
Move close
Do we
nominations.
have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All in favor of the slate, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Very good, congratulations to you three. Jim, when is how does that work?
27th.
The fourth Wednesday of every month.
Fourth Wednesday of the month.
That's next, we have next.
Next week.
Next week, we have the meeting.
7 o'clock, right here in this room.
Right here in this room, okay. And those notices are sent out,
Same as your meeting.
the same.
They've already gone out. Yeah.
Yep, but we'll make the adjustment.
I'm sure that you will. Are there any other nominations that should take place at this time that I'm not aware of? If not, we can move on into the regular agenda. Organization of the board, we've done that. Public comments, do we have anybody in the audience who would like to make a public comment? If not, we can move on to finance. We've had a bit of an up and down meeting schedule on the finance committee meeting, and I'm going to wait until we get through this, get down to the chair's report, to let you know how I think we'll organize the committees as they go on. Once those committees are formed, then we will get a schedule as to when they will meet, and we'll carry on from there. But more on that as we go on. Okay, we can go down to these treasurers'
Could I ask one clarifying question as I'm filling out this nomination form? Who was elected to be the clerk?
Ron,
Thank you. Yeah.
and did you get the other ones?
Yes, I did.
Okay. A treasurer's report enclosed. We have a motion to accept it.
So move.
Any discussion on it? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Very good, it's carried. We can go on down to the budget status report is for your information. Does anybody have any information on that? Do we have anything there? that we could-
It's just for information.
Yeah, we went over that. Now we're down to this next one.
Receive Rise Vermont donation.
Yeah, well, let me go through that. Is there anybody?
There's no
have
action
any-
required on the budget status.
Right,
No.
no action required. Just saying, does anybody have a question on it? We go down, Rise, the VT donation. I checked with Renee on that, and I guess it's something that comes in yearly. I'm not exactly sure what it is.
You need to vote to accept, by policy, you have to accept all.
Right,
payments.
but can you give a little explanation as to what it is?
I am not aware of what that is and who benefits it. I don't, and Renee's not here tonight.
Dave, does that ring a bell with you anywhere?
Rise Vermont?
Rise Vermont, is that a,
No.
I've read it before coming here, and it's something that we need to accept in terms of the $1,500 donation. And I was just looking to see whether I brought the sheet to give all the details for that, but it's a particular event that sponsors some of our students to help us.
is that it?
Yeah, Fran brought his in here.
Good.
And it was sent to Laura Boudreau, as assistant superintendent, so, and it was a grant application.
Improve the healthy
To
landscape
support
of your
the
school
Family
community.
Fitness Fest at Mount Anthony Union
Right.
Middle School in May.
Very good. So that's what it is. It's the amount of $1,500. I'd like to have a motion to accept
I'll
that
move
gift.
it.
Second it.
Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ron, could I ask you as clerk to write an appropriate letter to them expressing our thanks? And I guess the best person to get more information on it
I'm
would.
gonna give you this sheet, and I'll tell you who's the grant from.
If it was, as from, I'd get a hold of Tim Payne, and I'm sure that he can fill you in on more of the details. We have a procedure for executing contracts. As lots of you know, sometimes
That's the wording for the motion.
okay. What happens during the summer and during times when we can't meet is a contract will come in, it'll be approved by the administration, buildings and grounds, and whoever else has to take a look at it. But in order for it to become official, either what we've done in the past is either the chair or the vice chair will have permission from this board to sign it.
This is actually a different one. This is from our auditors, and what they're talking about in this, what they consider a contract is even purchase recs. So there needs to be a vote on record that the board is authorizing the superintendent or my designee, which would be Renee, to sign purchase recs, but non-employment contracts, those are specifically excluded from this motion, which is what
Yeah.
your
We did last
authority is
year.
in the summer. yeah.
Right. Okay, so does everybody understand what this is? You have that authority now, don't you?
So the auditor, when they did the audit, said there's no record of a vote being taken given that authority, so the recommendation is that we bring this to every board and have them vote on record that,
Very good.
You're granted
Does
this
anybody need any further explanation on that? If not, did you all get a copy of the wording for this? Do you want me to read it, or do you want to just vote?
We don't have a copy. There wasn't anything on the site for that, so we were waiting for
Okay.
that.
Authorize the superintendent or her designee to execute on behalf of Mount Anthony Union High School District purchased orders, agreements for consulting services, grant agreements, and other contracts arising effectively the routine operation of the school district. The superintendent or his designee shall not execute any contract resulting from a public bid process, any employment agreements, or any long-term contracts without express authority from the board. Anybody have a question on that wording? Okay, although, yes, I'm sorry, Ed.
At the CDC, whenever the chair or the vice chair would go down to sign warrants, it would include payroll. And I didn't hear that word in what you read. And I'm just wondering if it belongs in there.
It's not.
well, no, because that's a warrant, this is authorizing contracts.
Contracts,
Yeah.
but we still, the chair or vice chair still does go in and sign those.
Okay.
As we go
Right.
through.
I do not sign warrants.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on it? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Does that take care of that, Jim?
Yes, it does, yeah.
Okay. We can go down to consent agenda,
I'll
Fran.
move it.
Any questions on any of that?
I'll second it.
Second it, okay, any questions? All
Let's
those
see.
in,
I'm trying to see what did I do.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstentions or noes? Very good, we can move down to policy. I've been informed that
This one.
the last meeting was not attended by our representative, and therefore he would just as soon not be responsible for it. So, were you there, Leon?
I hope so. I ran the meeting. The one policy that, we had a great meeting. Those are always good meetings, I have to tell you, that was a great meeting. We had the nurses group that came in and had performed a review of a bunch of the policies that affect the students and the process by which we handle students medically. And anaphylaxis is one of the policies in which we reviewed, and we took a couple of paragraphs out of the base of the policy, and the administrative regs were the ones that really got cleaned up so that they would be more appropriate for the type of things that are happening now by the nurses. So that's what's in there. So this is up for warning. I would appreciate it if you were to have a motion to warn this
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any questions from Leon or anybody else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Very good, we can move on then. Committee report, I think it's important that periodically, or hopefully maybe even at each meeting, that we have those board members who are on committees report to the board the activity that's taken place since our last meeting on different areas. And Carrie has been very good about going to the meetings that involve food service or agriculture. And would you just give us a brief outline of where we are and where we're going?
Yeah, and I should say that Ron has been going as well.
Oh, good. Sorry, Ron. I didn't attend the meeting, so
Yeah. Right, we've
thank you
got-
for attending.
So first for Ag Land Committee, we haven't met since October, and we decided at the October meeting that because mostly the business is about the gardens, that we didn't need to meet as a committee during the winter when it's not the growing season. So at that meeting, there was a small working group that was formed with just about, I would say, 5 people who work really closely with the garden. And so those people continue to meet and work on agenda items that had been sort of like going on the agenda every month. So they could work on them, and then we're gonna meet as a larger committee next month on April 1st. But I do hear from the farmer that the kids have been out there, that they have planted broccoli, kale, mustard greens, and spinach, and they've been out in the greenhouse beds. They're learning about season extension and about early growing techniques, which should be important in Vermont. They just received some soil samples back from UMass, which is important so that they can decide where to plant things and whether the soil is appropriate for certain plants. And basically, he just said everything's in the planning stage and they're just waiting for the weather to get nice, and but they have the seeds in the soil.
Carrie, I have a question for you.
Yep.
We have the greenhouse at the, as you know, attached to the main high school building. And I'm not sure, Steve, or maybe you could, I'd like to see that used. I know that, do we have plans in the work to use it?
Somebody was in there
or-
today. I mean, I know the science department uses it occasionally. I don't know who was in there today, but I walked by and there were some people working in there.
Yeah,
Good.
I did go and have a tour of that, and Allison, I know, uses it.
Alison Brigham's the
Yeah.
That's great, because at one time, we were producing a lot of food, and we were actually selling it out of there to different places, and it was being used at the middle school for, part of the meal. So we've got a nice facility there, it'd be nice to have it used. Very good.
Yeah.
Food service.
Okay, and for food service,
That's old, all right.
they last met in January, and they're actually meeting again tomorrow at 3:30, and are always welcoming new attendees, and they have goodies provided every time. So I know that they're working on advertising and getting more parents and students to attend because they love having input. But basically, from the last meeting, meal participation numbers have remained really steady for the middle school and the high school. There was a full state audit that was done in November for the food service, and apparently it was very intensive, but everyone felt very positively about it, and that's something that will be reviewed at tomorrow's meeting, so we'll find out how that went. And I think the most important thing has just been the interactive web menus, which I think we mentioned the last time about the food service committee. But it's been really helpful for parents and students and I think nurses to be able to see the nutritional information for all the meals, especially for kids who have allergies of different kinds. So that's available on the web and on your mobile phone, and it's very easy to access. And I think that's about it.
Thank you very much. Ron, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that was perfect.
She does a good job. Thank you very much. Now, the next thing on is negotiations. And Rob, if you would just give us a brief update of where we are with the ESP negotiation process.
And what has happened, I'll call them the teams have met twice. The first time was some weeks ago where at least the school side did not have a quorum, so there was no actual discussion regarding the negotiations. We did meet more substantively last Thursday, where essentially the two sides' attorneys spoke, Right now, it's basically about what the parameters of the discussion is going to be. We have not gotten into much of the discussion of the merits of the negotiation, so those are being narrowed down, and the next meeting is next Thursday, the 28th. I believe it's at 5 o'clock, and at that time, there'll be much more of a substantive discussion on where we're going to be going.
Good, thank you. Anybody have any questions? In terms of the teacher negotiation, we've met a number of times, discussed things. The association has agreed that that we will negotiate a one-year contract with the only area up for discussion is salary. Each side has had several proposals. We're still a good deal distance apart, which isn't unusual. It's the way things go. And both sides have agreed to use an arbitrator to help us reach a conclusion on it. Date has not been set for that yet, as far as I know. Jim, is there any change in that?
No, they're still down
They're
to those
still-
2 dates, waiting to see
Waiting to see what happens. But anyway,
who's available.
who's available and what. There are a number of different players. To get everybody together is always difficult. We've got a vacation time coming up. So anyway, we are there. We're working on it, and we certainly hope to be able to reach an agreement certainly before the end of school. Anybody have any questions on that? Fran, you're there. Would you like to enter into it?
Don't just want to hurry up and get the arbitration, get it over with.
No, keep going.
Okay, very good. We can go on then. Finance, we had a meeting, and I think the outcome of the meeting really was that we needed to do some more thinking about some of the projects that were outlined in that meeting. What we need to do is to expand the group a little bit so that we can hear from other interested parties who may have some strong feelings about things. A couple of the members at the last meeting brought up some points that some of us, including myself, weren't 100% aware of, which was encouraging. I think it's important that the administration, teachers, and the board work together to formulate those things that we each agree on are important to have done, and then find out how we can do it with the finances that we have and what kind of priorities they have. But we have 2 schools here, and we have to remember that both their situations should be considered.
And once you appoint your members,
Yeah.
the finance committee will select a date to reschedule.
Right, and we'll expand that go. I think, my thinking right now is that in the past, those people that have been on the board, certainly Fran and Leon would remember, but part of the finance committee has always been a general maintenance, buildings and grounds, we used to call it, buildings and grounds committee. And that buildings and grounds committee periodically, certainly before the budget, would meet with the director of buildings and grounds, the superintendent, the principals, any other individual that had a concern about the facilities and taking a look at the order of things, and walk around and take a look so that we all knew what the priorities were, and therefore we would be in a better position to allocate funds and set up programs. So I think that's the direction we're gonna go again. Education committee, Dave has been running that, Dave Durfee has been running that for a number of years. He has asked that he not be assigned, can be assigned to it, but he will not be able to attend it, and he feels that he will not be the chair of that committee. So I will be appointing a new chair to that committee, and as always, what I will do, I might as well talk about it right now, is to ask each of you to send me a list of those committees that you would like to serve on. I think it's important for everybody to realize that any board member can go to any committee meeting, and your thinking will be obviously considered along with those members of the committee. The idea of a committee is to explore things, do the initial research on things, and bring back to the full board their feelings, their thoughts, their priorities in terms of whatever the situation happens to be. And I think that makes sense. It saves time. Board meetings tend to be long, and if we have to do all that surveying in each case, rather than having some of it left up to the committees, I think we would be not doing the job that we should be doing. So once again, I ask you, please, if you could, let me know within the next couple of days, those committees you would like to serve on, and I will get back to you. Yes?
Tim, I'm not lobbying to chair the education committee, but I read something in the Rutland Herald. Fairhaven receives gold standard for money courses, and this is about financial literacy. And that seemed like an excellent course, and some schools require it. We don't have financial literacy, or it's not required, or what's the
Judy offered
status?
a course like that. Judy Estes offered a course like
Yeah,
that for
but
years.
she's not
Yeah.
with us
Yeah.
anymore.
Finance course has been transferred to the CDC.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was a finance course, that was a career development center thing that was being offered to all the students that wanted to take that, is financial literacy and all that stuff.
I wonder if maybe it should be talked about if it's making it a required course.
Sure. I think that's an excellent thing, and that would be the sort of thing to talk about at an education meeting and work from there. Those of you who were on the board, if you two would certainly remember, Steve Counter was always a strong advocate of promoting a course within the school. Dave, you certainly remember it, a course within the school that would act as an instructional basis for kids to learn about money, how to handle it, about insurance, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a good suggestion. Ed?
It's done deal transferring that course to the CDC. And a year or so ago, I brought up the issue of requiring a certain number of CDC technical credits from the CDC for MAU graduates. And the question came up, was it proper or even legal to require students to attend classes in another district? And maybe we should ask our attorneys about.
Sure. Well, those are questions
About
that are good, and I'm sure that our, principals as well as the superintendent have thoughts on that, and we can explore it
I
further.
mean, I'm in favor of requiring it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure I understand the question. I mean, I'm on that too, and I want to understand what it is that you're saying.
I think what he's
Yeah.
saying is, can we have a course that's offered by the CDC that would be required for students in MA at the high school to take? Is that right, Ed?
Yeah, yes.
And I'm not, I don't
I'm
want
not
to.
sure what the answer is.
I don't want to get into that right now, but it's something that obviously Steve and Jim will have some very strong feelings on, I would assume. Thanks, Ed. Any other questions on any of those things?
I'm in favor of
We can move on then to
But
the,
You missed one, policy committee. Policy committee.
policy committee, fine, I didn't put it, policy committee, Leon has, believe me, I won't forget. Policy committee is the policy committee, and Rob has done a good job, and Leon has been involved with it a long time, but he's at the SVSU level, and we felt it was important to have somebody from the MAU board that would be primarily interested in our concerns.
So under that, before you, I'll give you the update on that, and I mentioned it earlier. The policy committee has been meeting, and we missed the last month, but this previous, is someone trying to get on? Or is that me?
I think it's here.
Sure, if included in that, maybe we'll know.
Pretty fast on their feet there.
So, we started a conversation at our last policy meeting dealing with the students' eligibility and co-curricular activities, policy number 6330. It's so much involved in that policy that we decided to dedicate a complete meeting for that, just to discuss that one policy on April 1. And so at 4:30 at the central office, we'll be just dedicating the whole time just to go and discuss that policy all the way through. That's it.
Very good. Thank you, Leon. Anything else?
No.
Okay, we can move on then to the report from the administrators. As you know, this board made a few requests and we missed a few meetings. we had requested of the high school to have a report on basically, discipline was one thing, and the other was those students graduating college, the whole procedure and how it all works. And we've decided that this evening, Dave is here, who has been doing this sort of thing for a long time. Dave?
Yeah, I've been doing this since 1999, and it never gets to the point where you can be complacent. There's always new wrinkles. And I think we're always trying to keep ahead of the curve and see what we can do to expand our awareness of student issues, problems that they bring to school, problems they get into at school. So I think what we try to do is we definitely partner with the CDC, with the middle school. We work together so that our policies work in alignment. We share an in-school suspension room with we have it, the CDC uses that as well. We work closely with them. We also reach out to social agencies, UCS, CRJ, Center for Restorative Justice, also DCF. And we're trying to be more restorative, so it's not just simply a kid does something, we just snap with a consequence. We're trying to be more trauma-informed, find out why the kid does it, what we need to do to prevent it from happening again. So we're drawing from a lot of resources. And I think we've been pretty effective. Just when you think you're onto something new comes down the line. The newest thing, of course, is vaping. And we just had a meeting with Erica Marthage, the state's attorney, and law enforcement. We work closely with the Sheriff's Department and the Bennington PD, also with Vermont State Troopers, to try to keep up with the latest situations with things like this. So we're working with Erica to put together a policy that we can do district-wide with the CDC and with the middle school as well. The other thing I think is, we hear a lot about harassment and bullying. The way that looks is not the way it looked years ago. When I first came to Mount Anthony, bullying was definitely a question of person in power, wielding that power over somebody with lesser power. At the high school, most of what we deal with are relationship problems. Former friends, former boyfriends and girlfriends who have gone afoul of each other, and we do a lot of mediation. So therefore, we work closely with the agencies I mentioned, the clinicians, the guidance counselors, and that's a lot of what we do. It's not a lot of hardcore bullying and harassment. So we're very fluid with what we deal with, and we try to keep aware of what's out there that we can draw from. And we have a lot of partners in the community and with law enforcement and social service agencies. And like I said, we work closely with other schools. Burr & Burton called us about our vaping policy in the summer. We work closely with Erica. So those are some of the things we do. And if you have, I'd like to know what kind of questions you have so I could direct it more towards what you might wonder about.
I have a question. Cell phones, personal phones. What's our policy at the?
The policy is, at Mount Anthony, is they're allowed to have them and use them before school, after school, at lunch, because a lot of high school kids have jobs. They take care of younger brothers and sisters. However, they can't be out in the classroom. Once they come to class, the phones can't be visible. If they're out, they're confiscated and they're put into they usually have these phone trees, they call them. And if a student refuses, then they're sent to the office, and one of us in our team deals with that.
Is that a problem at all?
I mean, from time to time, it's hard to predict, but there are some kids who feel like this is their property, and we keep telling them, yes, it's your property, but at school, it's under our supervision to make sure that you're not using this as a distraction. So, and we have parents who don't quite get that either, but they've come a long way. So it's something we still deal with, but not like we used to. Vaping is the latest thing because it's such a national phenomenon. But I think we're doing pretty well with the cell phones.
Good. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, we went through that particular policy, and Dave mentioned about Mount Anthony. What we did, the latest change to affect everybody in terms of the technology changes was, in that policy, it gives the school and the teacher the opportunity to use technology within the classroom, whether it be laptop or cell phone. So if the teacher make that part of their curriculum activity, to use that and so forth, and then it's used in the classroom. But you do have the one where if they don't, and it's restricted, they put them in a basket and they walk in the door. And so just wanted everybody to know that we're not shut out to things along that line. So our policy was adjusted so that we can have the opportunity to use technology when it was a place for it and when there's no place for it,
That's right.
bring it right up.
Are there any other questions or areas you want me to?
I have another
go
one.
into? Sure.
What is I know that we have law enforcement officers within the school. What is the general procedure if that individual finds a student doing something wrong? What happens?
They come to us,
They
okay?
do.
And I'll deal with a student if it rises to the level of something that's going to be, if they're breaking the law, I'll be there working in conjunction with the officer. But generally, they're there to be a presence, to be available for kids who have questions about law enforcement. They're not out there, necessarily going out and addressing that. If there's a kid, there's a problem, they'll contact us. And they're never, alone dealing with the kid. That's our job to do that.
But if they see a student with an illegal substance or
Oh,
whatever,
yeah.
whatever it would be,
That
then
same process,
do they take action then, or do they go to you?
They'll bring the student to me, and I'll deal with the parents, and I'll work side by side with them on that. So it's
So
it's
that
gonna be
if
under our-
something like that happens within the school, then is it our policy to notify parents that this has taken place and the
Yes,
police
well,
are involved, or what happens there?
Well, what we do first of all is we get as much information as we can. Then I will call the parent and say, this is what we've discovered, this is the process, how it came about, this is what we have, and then notify it that way. We don't call the parent before. We've checked it out. It's our right to search the student, for example. We always tell the parent, your child has been searched because, and these are the reasons why. We have to have reasonable suspicion. A godsend is the cameras that we have. And, we have them all over the school. And we also have, one of the things I think is very, we're blessed with at the high school is the kids report stuff. I mean, a lot of what we hear about are kids coming in and saying, this is what's happening. They come to us about their own problems, but they also come about their concerns about other things. A lot of our vaping comes from kids who come in and say to us, I don't like this in the bathroom, this is what's happening. So, so reports come to us. And we'll tell the parents, this is what's happened. We don't give our, we observe confidentiality, of course, but we'll say, this is why we had your son and or daughter, this is what brought this about, this is why we have reasonable suspicion, and then this is what we've had.
But we have had instances where the police have taken over a certain situation.
Not in the high school, not within the school. It might have been at a function,
Okay.
yeah. And we've addressed that.
Okay.
We've been very conscientious about saying that this is the procedure, that they come to us, and one of the administration is there to carry out the school policies.
Very good. And I just have one more. Are there things that this board, and maybe through policy or whoever, through education or whatever it would be?
One thing I would think about, and this came out, I went to the last session of the Dave Melnick Trauma-Informed
I don't know that.
program.
Is it-
Dave
He's
is
someone that we've contracted with for the past 2 years for
Right.
trauma-informed practices in our school.
I didn't know that.
And it's a real eye-opener because it helps the people to see why students do what they do. Like a lot of times we'll see a kid will act up and a teacher will say, well, I just asked him to do this and he exploded. But the trauma-informed makes you go beyond that to see what's happening with that kid, why that happened. And we can actually not just punish the kid for that instance, but try to find out what happened so we can prevent that. And we're trying to make the school, the whole district is trying to make this something we're more aware of. I think it'd be great if he came to the board and let you know this is what's happening. It's not just a district initiative, it's nationwide.
No.
And I think it really helps for us to see, why kids do what they do. Not that-
Does he work with kids that are younger too?
He's with, it's the contract is with the SU, and so it's SU-wide he's been working
Right,
with.
he
That's
works
what
up
I was gonna say.
up north at NFI, which is an institute where he deals with trauma kids, but he's working
He's a
with the
Vermont
district.
practitioner, but he's
Right.
all,
Dave, just so I better understand, could you give me an example? I'm not the student's name or anything,
Okay.
but just an example of a situation that he would
Okay.
address and how he would
Well,
address it.
an example was a kid the other day was very upset and through a mini crisis in the hallway, started yelling, and it was because he didn't have a pass with him. Something happened at home. It was a traumatic thing at home with his parents. He was on his way to the office to try to get somebody to help him, and somebody stopped him and said, "You don't have a pass, you can't go there." And what Dave is trying to say is find out first, what's going on. Go to somebody who deals with that to have them intervene before you just get black and white and say, this is the case. And the kid was actually coming to prevent himself from getting into trouble and to talk to somebody about getting help and to get connected with a clinician or a guidance counselor. So it's an approach, it's an awareness that, you know, the kids aren't necessarily willfully trying to act up. There's much more pressure and stress. I wouldn't want to be a teenager today. There's more stress on them, and as a result, it comes out in actions that sometimes they don't understand, much less us understanding them. So trauma-informed approach is to let us see that there's something beyond the action that you know, we have to address.
Very good. Anybody have, yes?
Is there anything in our policies and procedures that you would modify or add to or create?
Well, we're trying to work more we're updating the vaping thing all the time because it's so new. I'm trying to think of anything else particularly. We revise the handbook every year because there's always something that comes up you don't
I know.
expect. I'll give you an example. One was somebody refused to be searched. So a couple of years ago, we had nothing in the policy because we never thought that would happen. Now we have something that says if you don't submit, if we have reasonable suspicion and you say, I refuse to be searched, then you're going to get the consequence that would go with that particular offense. So if alcohol and drugs is a 5-day suspension, we have reasonable suspicion, you run, you don't want to be searched, you refuse to be searched, then you're going to get that consequence. So those are the kind of things that we don't necessarily see them coming, so we have to adjust those. And every year I write down things that, oh yeah, we didn't have this in there, so we add to the handbook.
I had one parent complain to me that, and it was a conversation as opposed to a complaint, but it was her complaint that if something is not in the handbook, that the school isn't doing anything about it, and I don't believe that's correct.
No, but that's exactly why we review it,
That's
because.
the
right.
information out on
Yeah.
the street.
And they'll use that, Ed. They will say, well, show me in the handbook where it says it. So my handbook is all color-coded because I know they're going to go to this, they're going to ask that. Like, for example, they'll say, well, for example, one of the things we added was if you talk about drugs and alcohol and you're told not to and you keep it up, you will be referred to the drug and alcohol workshop because there are kids who will, go on about this. So I enforced that. The parents said, show me where that is in the handbook. And I showed her, this is where we've added it. So we constantly try to do that because we don't necessarily see what's coming and those situations arise and we'll adjust the handbook for any kind of future event like that.
How many pages is that handbook?
Well, it went from, back in your day, somebody gave me the 1972 handbook, which was like a pamphlet. I think it was 4 or 5 pages. Now it's up to like 50. Partly because we include policies that we have to by law put in there, but we try to think of every eventuality. Some of them are outdated. Like I have to say, knock on wood, it may come back, but we don't have a gambling problem. 15 years ago, we did. We had, when Texas Hold'em was real popular, we had people doing that. We put it in there because who knows if it's going to come back. So it has gotten to be a pretty heavy document.
Very good. Yeah.
What I wanted to make sure, and everybody understand, there's 2 forms that we deal with. One is a policy and an administrative regs. The policies, the board sets and have in position.
Right.
And the administrative regs is an interpretation and an implementation of the policy. And those things are mainly in the handbook because they reflect the actual activity of the things within the workings of the school that need to be there for parents to understand and see. And they reference back to the home policy for that. So I just want to make sure everybody know what it is that take place. And the vaping policy piece has already been resolved in the policy with the language was changed so that the school would have the opportunity to do what it needs to do in those particular areas.
Right.
That was one we did.
Yeah, we didn't have that, years ago, we didn't have that in there. Yeah.
Right. And so that we fixed it so that each time something come up, the language, we won't be trapped with a new thing,
Right.
but our language is such that it will allow us to manage or catch those things in the policy. So the last thing you mentioned, trauma, that's an SVSU thing, but I don't know that we really need a policy for that. I'm trying to see how that
No,
would
that's
fit
not.
somewhere.
The SVSU is doing training, and for the past 2 years, we've contracted with Dave Melnick. not suggesting that we need a policy.
Okay. No,
I think it's just
wanted
good,
not-
it's
But I
something to
think
be
your
aware
point,
of.
though, is, I think it would be interesting, I certainly would be interested, just in a case like this young boy, I guess it was, that ran down the hall with a pass and things, I mean, it sounded like if the training had been with that individual, that may not have taken
Right,
place.
right.
You know, it could
Yeah.
have
I
been
mean, we live in a
resolved.
gray world, and it can't be black and white.
It could have been resolved before. Anyway, that's very helpful.
One last
Oh,
question.
yeah.
Are there any issues between the MAU policies and CDC?
No, we spent a lot of time.
Policies, but I know that you work together.
Right. No, I mean, I know their attendance is different, but we've tried to work that out to be pretty close. No, I think we work very closely. Meg and I work closely because she does a similar thing over in the CDC. I don't know that we have anything that's really different. Today, we had a meeting as recent as 2 o'clock. We sat together with the CDC with a student we shared in common, and we both had the same approach and the same, consequence with the students. So we work very closely together. And they use our, like I said, we have an in-school suspension room. They don't, they'll call and say, can we put a kid in there? We work collaboratively with them all the time.
That's good. Any other questions? Steve, don't want to completely leave you out of this by any means.
Well, Dave's busy at what he does, but he's very good at what he does. And just because he's busy doesn't mean it's all discipline for negativity. A lot of what Dave does is Dave is proactive in a lot of areas, and the kids have a lot of trust in Dave and some of the people that work with Dave. And it is amazing to me to see how many kids actually come down to identify to Dave that they're having a bad day or having issues. And they know that by going to talk to Dave, that will sort of alleviate the issue. So they're sort of going to him before they get in trouble, which is an interesting thing to see. And I think the whole group there handles the students very, very well. And the whole staff understands. I mean, Dave, for example, Dave didn't mention it, but Dave held a class in our in-service on Friday with teachers and went over the trauma procedures with them. So we do a lot of things like that to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And there's a lot of proactive things going on.
Very good. Is there anything else you'd like to mention, Steve?
Well, I do have a little quick, my
Good.
usual report here, if
Yes,
you'd like to
right.
get to that.
Yeah. We're ready for it.
I'm also filling in for our student rep, Jason, tonight, because Jason is at the Nordic banquet.
Good.
So since we last met, we had a very successful play in Romeo and Juliet. The students did a fantastic job with that. And we just recently, the past weekend, had a successful pop concert at the school. In sports, the Nordic team won the Division I championship, and Jack Drew, Noah Payne, Sarah Umflett, and Natalie Jelly were all chosen for the Eastern High School Championships, and Vermont won those championships. Our wrestling team were the Division I champs again. They finished 10th in the New Englands, and now they're off to the Nationals between March 28th and 31st in Virginia. The track, dance, and cheerleading squads all qualified for the New Englands. So we've had a fairly successful sports winter. We finished our winter map testing, and we accomplished our goal of 95% participation. So we've done that again. So that's a great job, and I'd like to give Christopher Barnes credit for that, or one of our assistant principals. He's responsible for the map testing, and he does a really good job getting that done. On March 7th, we had an open house for parents to come and meet with their teachers of their students for the second semester, and that was very successful. And on March 8th, we had our annual winter ball. Coming up on April 5th, we're going to have a reality fair at SVC. That's where students prepare by choosing a profession, and then they go through various areas to check on whether that profession sort of meets up to the expectations of what they thought it was going to be. So they see how much money they would make at that profession, then they go and find out how much an apartment might cost or a home might cost, how much a car might cost, to see if they could survive on a regular basis with that pay in that profession. On April 11th, we have a college fair at the high school for upperclassmen. And the last thing I have, and this is a tribute to our math department and our students in the math department. There was a MathWorks Math Modeling Challenge. It's a national contest for high school juniors and seniors. And our students experienced what it was like to participate in that. And there's a $100,000 ultimate prize. And there were 877 teams nationally. And our team made it to the second round. So they are now going to the second round. They also, another subsection of that where each team had to submit a video, and our team was one of the 5 out of 877 submitted to go to the final round for the videos. And the math team consisted of Andrew Georgie, Byram Joma, Evan Kazarak, Ricardo Maiku, and Aditi Patel. And the advisors, the 2 math advisors, are Chung Suk Lad and Katie Schoenbeck. So congratulations to them for doing a fantastic job in a national contest. That's all I have.
Is that an ongoing contest, will it go on now, or where are we with that?
They're in the second round.
Second round?
So what that entails at this point, I really couldn't tell you.
And just basically what happens there, are they given problems, or how are they?
It's a math modeling procedure, and it's interesting because our math department is working hard on math modeling, which
What's
I
that
guess the
mean?
easiest way to say it is taking math and applying it to real life problems. So we don't have students saying, when are we ever going to use this? Because you're actually using it in real life problems. And so they are given a variety of problems that they have to solve, and how they solve them is what determines whether they had the accurate solution compared to other schools.
That's good. I know we have a math teacher back there too. Would you like to add anything to that?
That's why she's smiling.
Yeah, no, that was very accurate.
Yeah, good. Well, that's great. I'm sure you'll keep us
Sure.
up on it. Very good. Any questions of Steve?
I have
Yes.
one question. With the closing of Southern Vermont College
Mhm.
at the end of the semester, is that going to affect any of our students that are in a dual enrollment type
We don't know
situation?
what the outcome is at the present. There will be ramifications for a few things that we do in connection with SVC. So for example, I just mentioned the reality fair. We also have a sophomore summit, and where sophomores go over and we use the SVC campus to talk about future professions. And if SVC does in fact close and we don't have access to that campus anymore, from what I understand, historically, we have used Bennington, the Bennington campus. So it's just a matter of aligning when we offer it, because there was, for a couple of years, it conflicted because they were out on break when we needed to use it. So it's just a matter of recycling when we do things.
Yeah.
But as for school, our counselors are on top of, to place students where they'll best fit
Okay,
if
so
that doesn't
nobody's,
work out.
as far as we know, nobody will be left out.
No, we'll
No.
always find a solution to
Okay.
make sure they get the best.
Very good. Any other
Thank you.
questions of Steve? Did you say you had something from our student representative, or no?
No, I was the student representative.
Well, I know you're young, but
We'll go with that, Tim.
we'll let that go, okay?
That's in the record, right?
Definitely. Jim, did you have anything from the
Just
middle
a
school?
couple of things. The first thing that I wanted to ask, what do you want to do about your April meeting date?
Well, I wanna add
It is
that
the
down, too.
Wednesday of the school vacation week, so you may want to consider
What is a vacation week? Is it from the what to what?
the 17th is when your meeting would be.
So it's,
It's the week before Easter.
well, what's the first Wednesday after the vacation?
It'll be the
That would
same
be
meeting as
24th.
the first Wednesday after vacation.
It's the 24th.
Will also be the SU meeting.
At the same time?
Same
Right,
time.
because SVSU would be meeting
Yeah.
at that time. So you can move it up and do it on the 10th versus the 17th.
No, I
10th,
think-
I will have North Bennington, but at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, well, that's,
Shasbury will be meeting on the
That's right.
11th.
that's pretty soon
Yeah.
too, to
Yeah.
have one. We're gonna have some meeting.
Yeah.
What would this board like? I think we've got some things that we should work in terms of finance and buildings and grounds to work on. Is there another day?
Thursday, the 25th is possible. I would stay away from the Tuesday, the 23rd because of.
Thursday,
so.
the 25th, you say?
Yes.
Thursday, the 25th at 7 o'clock, how would that be? Anybody have a problem?
Well, I won't be here, so
We'll
that's.
miss you, but
That's a good thing.
the 25th, we could have a negotiations, and that's
Yeah.
it.
So then you could also do Tuesday, the 30th. I don't have a little trouble with that word.
We're trying to get it scheduled up, as I mentioned earlier, when we have an arbitrator. One of the dates that we're considering is the 25th. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Is the 25th. So I don't want to be in conflict with that, because we would start at I don't know when, probably 5 or so. That's when they like to start, so.
Right.
So then that would be that Tuesday.
Yeah, you could do Monday, the 29th, Tuesday, the 30th, whatever.
Monday, the 29th, how about that? Good, let's go with that one.
Okay.
Monday, the 29th?
And the reason why I was going to say to stay away from the 23rd is the other thing that I want to tell you. It has little to do with this board, but someday it may, so I try to keep you informed. So the election of the initial board for the Southwest Vermont Union Elementary School District will be held April 23rd, and it's also, so that's why I would stay away from that date. Just want to use a public forum to say, so that we can get out the vote, because this will be the second time that we're asking the public to come out and vote. They came out at town meeting day. Now, the public from the towns of Pownell, Woodford, Bennington, and Shasberry will need to come out and vote for the election of, and it's only going to be a single ballot item, and we know how turnout can be affected and how low it can be from something like that. It's the usual voting times, 7 to 7 in Pownell, Woodford, and Bennington. Shaftesbury is doing a reduced voting time of 10 to 7 that day, and it's not going to be at the fire station where it typically is held. It is going to be at their town offices. At Monday night's transition board, just to remind everybody, the transition board of this Union Elementary District is made up of the current chair and clerk. So Ron, see if you're on an elementary board and you were the clerk, you did have a very important role. So the clerk and chair are the members of this transition board. Their main task was to warn that vote for the 23rd. And they also have done some budget work. So at their meeting Monday night, they endorsed the combined budget of all 4 elementary schools. They can only endorse and recommend. The only one that can warn that budget is the initial board, which is the term for the board that will get elected on the 23rd. And the time clock is ticking on that, because then they have to warn 30-day minimum, 45-day maximum vote for the budget. So we will be asking the public to come out a third time, probably late May, most likely early June, to vote for the budget for the Unified Elementary School District, and that moves forward only if the quarter legislature doesn't do anything to alter that. So that's just to keep you all updated on that.
Jim, if legally, what happens if the vote is taken, the representatives are voted in? Don't they then become a legal entity?
They are currently a legal, and they are now a legal entity because they had their organizational meeting. So they're organized and recognized, and they are members, so they are a legal entity. Yeah.
So then could that revert back in any way or not?
Not being a gifted legal scholar, I don't know if I could comment on that, but the latest that we're hearing, the House bill to delay did not apply to us because of, we had already had, an organization, a study committee that had failed the vote, so that did not apply to us under the House plan, so we could move forward. The Senate plan, as I understand it, and this is, the full Senate hasn't voted on this yet, but the Senate Education Committee, that would allow a local option for this transition, the initial board, once elected, could vote to delay it 1 year, not to not do it, but delay it 1 year. Or they could vote to move forward. So the Senate, it's gonna have to come out of the Senate Ed Committee, get voted by the full Senate unless that happened today. Then it would go to committee to work out the differences between the House and the Senate to come out with a new bill that the governor would sign. So a lengthy process. And in this, I can't remember when I last updated on you all on this, the judge who was hearing the case did not issue an injunction to stop this going forward as had been asked, but he also has not ruled on where this is. So that, the lawsuit is still open, and anything could happen there. But, so that's why we're going down dual paths. We had all 4 individual budgets voted at town meeting, so Woodford, Pownell, Shaftesbury, and Bennington have their budgets in place in case there is a delay, but we're also moving forward with a unified budget also. And we're doing title searches. The first day of title, first week of title searches was completed last week. Doesn't appear to be any surprises on who has ownership. We only have that orally from our attorney. They're promising a full written report to us by the end of April, so shortly after the election of the initial board. The issue being all property that belongs to these individual school districts transfers to the new entity, the Union District. So ownership of this property that's going to be transferred is essential that it's determined who it is, and that it is in fact the school district that owns it, so it can be transferred, and not, say, the town that the school is located in.
Everybody get that straight?
And why is that, I'll repeat why it could
No,
impact
don't
you.
repeat it.
Someday, we're operating under what's called the default articles of agreement, and once this new board is up and operational, they could move to alter those default articles. A citizen's petition could bring back the one unified district that was voted down. So all those possibilities still float out there, and that's why I keep you updated.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions of Jim?
I have
Yeah.
just one. This is, it's under the FYI, but it has to do with attendance. And I bring that up because it looked like attendance is just constantly dropping. We're at 7.5%.
The attendance of the student enrollment report?
The student enrollment, 7.5%. But then when you even get higher, the elementaries are better, but when you get to Mount Entry, the high school is 89.3% last month. The middle school is 91%. These numbers are just dropping. And from an SVSU perspective, I thought we had some in place that if we start to look and see a lot of truancy some kind of way. I know that we just looked at the policy at the high school to talk about, tardiness and absence of that. But you can't really solve the problem of the neighborhood and the community if we don't have the students at the school. And so
Anything below 95% is a concern. 95% would be the standard that we always want to operate under. So what the elementary schools we've recently done is negotiated a contract with the Sheriff's Department to operate as truancy officers for the elementary school districts, that we can contract with them on a case-by-case basis when we are concerned about attendance level, and if we can get assistance in getting students to school, because it certainly is a concern, and we're well below the standard that we want.
Right.
Dave, do you have any idea the causes of the
I
truancy?
think there's some societal causes. I think there are a number of things. I think there are people who keep their kids home for various things. We had a mother tried to say her kid had to be home to take care of an animal. I mean, things like this. And I mean, I don't know why, but I mean, it seems like this is the case.
Okay.
We're trying hard at the high school to try to come up with things. We have a task force that addresses this, but part of it is getting parents to realize how important it is for their kids to be there and to be there on time. And that's another thing is tardiness. And
They need to be our partner on this. And you mentioned tardiness. I was coming into a meeting at the high school 2 days ago, and I'm always surprised. Later in the morning, school had already started. The drop-off in front of the high school, how many cars are pulling up, dropping our kids, and I know school is already started, because I can hear the announcements going on from the outside speaker.
Yeah, it's
So,
more than just a kid problem. It's
yeah,
true. yeah.
We need parents and guardians to be partners with us, to make it a
Absolutely.
priority.
Right.
Steve, what happens when a child is tardy or doesn't show up? Does somebody call, or what happens?
Yeah, as part of the attendance policy, if a student doesn't come, then a call is made to the home. And we have someone, our attendance officer, for lack of a better term, calls and speaks with the parent. And then the parent at that time, whether it's an excused or unexcused absence, or whether there's a medical issue, and then a note has to be brought in when the child returns to school.
So we've got a pretty good idea, if this procedure is followed, as to why that student isn't in school?
For the most part.
Very good. Any other questions? Just like to remind you that I would appreciate your letting me know what committees you'd like to serve on. And, I look forward to a good, productive year. And thank you all very much. Are there any other issues to bring before this board?
I just like to make sure we thank the voters for passing our budget and reelecting the school board members. So we really appreciate that. I don't know that we said that, or did you say
Nope,
that?
no.
You did. So, we definitely want to do that. This
Okay.
was a successful year when it came to voters coming out and voting on the things that we needed to have done for the school district and to reelect the board members. So a thumbs up. We'll try to do our best job possible.
That's for sure.
Right.
Any other
Tim.
thoughts? Yes,
This is the section others, right?
yes.
I have some others.
Oh, okay, good.
I wanted to comment on some of the recent events at the high school. The first one, the British invasion, January 26th. Past and present students, staff. Dave was the MC. Frank Barnes had a part. And our principal did an Eric Clapton solo. Now, first off, it was an excellent show. Second off, I have to believe the students see those people in a different light, and that was pretty impressive to me.
Great.
Now, that's the good news. The bad news, you've heard me before talking about we have to do a better job of blowing our own horn, talking about the good things that are happening at the high school. I believe we hired someone to do that, and on that one, we had nothing. Next, we had a Pops concert, 14, 15, 16, another great show. I'll bet there was over 100 students on that. And think about how much confidence and self-assurance you get from performing in front of a big crowd like that. And I have to believe a lot of those students, that's one of the reasons they enjoy coming to high school. They take some pride in it and feel good about themselves. And Jim Derby came out of retirement to direct the jazz band. I thought that was a real plus. But I didn't see anything on that except Judy Estes put some picture in the paper. But Leon, you and I went to that school to work thing. I thought that was a nice, I think it's a good part of our curriculum. I saw nothing on that. The three girls that sing the national anthem before our games, some nights, that's the highlight of the night. But you listen to Steve talk about all kind of positive things that are happening, and my complaint is we're not letting people know. I would think that the taxpayers, if they could see all these positive things, would feel better about paying their taxes. So that's just a few examples, but I think we've got to have a mechanism or a procedure so that our publicity guy and the staff can work together so we can let people know there are good things happening here. And I would, maybe in our next meeting, we could get a report on if we can set up a procedure.
So he is giving a report to the SU meeting, at the April meeting. Remember, he's an SU employee, he doesn't just work exclusively for MAU. And when I had this discussion with him, and I don't know these specifics, so I will have to I'd appreciate a copy of the comments that you said, so I can check with him
You can
for.
read that?
All right, I'll give you time to rewrite it.
Type it up.
So, 'cause
Yeah, right.
it comes down
Okay.
to communication between the administrators to the public information coordinator. And then what a lot of his effort is on our Facebook page and on social media, and we can't control what the banner puts in. But I want to look at those specific items that you're talking about, so I can sit and talk with him and see, did he know that it was happening? Because then the first thing I would say, like, how do we improve that communication so that he knows what's going on specifically at the high school, and what he can cover, and how we can, I agree, they're all great events and should be, particularly, I did see a video clip of the principal performing, so I agree, that was a tremendous moment. So I'd like to see that so that we can follow up on that.
I'll try to make it presentable.
Okay, and I forgot to recognize during my report, Frank Barnes had something to address, so when we get time, if he could address that before we start the meeting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let me pick on Ed.
I have just a short item. I happen to be reading the safety policy that we have. And it states that the MSDS sheets will be provided to the instructor, which is correct. But in my experience out there in industry, they should also be available to the workers, in our case, students, particularly in classes like chemistry, and this will go for the CDC too, some of their classes. And maybe we need to revisit that policy and add that, or at least administratively.
So we can look into that, but I'm pretty sure that there are binders for MSD sheets in all
In the classrooms?
classrooms. but
Okay.
I don't-
That's what I thought too, but I wasn't sure.
For that use come.
And it doesn't state it clearly in
Very good.
the
Okay,
policy.
Frank?
Oh, great, thank you very much for letting me speak.
Remembering you.
Both a citizen and as the Director of Educational Technology for the SDSU. And something that you said earlier, Tim,
Yeah, I think you're one of our communication peoples after you to speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry. There we go.
There you go.
When you brought up the topic of cell phones, and it got a bunch of things going in my head, and so I'd like to make a couple of points, and I appreciate Leon pointing out how the policy is written regarding cell phones, and I don't disagree with that at all. I think it's fine. But a couple points that I think really need to be made here, and I'll use some personal experiences and to do this. I'll be quick though. My daughter, who's 31. One of her primary tools at her job, she's a digital marketing manager for Boston Brewing, is a cell phone. She makes a lot more money than I do. Her fiance, who is a global digital marketing manager for Ben & Jerry's, one of his primary tools at work is a cell phone. And he makes a lot more money than she does. Not that it's all about money, but these are jobs that are happening everywhere. And I think that before we just we say that students shouldn't be using them. As Leon pointed out, and as I know Dave knows, teachers have the prerogative to have their students use their phones in the classroom. And if I were still in the classroom, my students would have their phones out every day. There's so much stuff that they can do with this that's legitimate learning. There are safety issues that we're concerned about, but it's no different in my mind anyway, and I don't know how you feel, but we still teach archery in phys ed, I think. I don't know. There's some dangers there too. And we teach the students how to use those tools appropriately so they avoid the danger. Back when I played football, there's danger there too. But I learned how to fall. It didn't necessarily always help, but it mitigated the problem of any serious broken bones and things like that. There's danger no matter what you do. So those are my points. My suggestion is, I think it would be a good idea now to have a discussion around possibly having a class or something which would teach students how to use these things in an appropriate manner in today's world. We can't be expecting students, when so many jobs are available. I mean, my daughter and her fiance, those are just two small examples. It's everywhere. Of how here's an example. As far as I know, if Dave Durfee's still on there, he's on there with his cell phone. He's attending this meeting with his cell phone. We were talking on the back channel while we were trying to find out the problem through my cell phone. I've been working all night on my cell phone here in this meeting. These are things that we're, you know, it's 2019, and I think we have to address these things. And I think it's worth a discussion about how might we, maybe through the librarians, media specialists, maybe through a course, maybe through something. And I think this maybe should start in the middle school myself, that's where I do it, but whatever. All I'm suggesting is have a discussion, talk about how we can use the technology that's at our disposal and in our pockets every day, that people use for legitimate work reasons and legitimate lifestyle reasons, and have them learn how to use those tools, just like how they learn financial literacy, anything else that they're gonna be facing in the world beyond school. And that's it, just like the.
I don't think anybody would argue the point that there's a lot of good that can be derived from a cell phone. But on the other hand, I myself, because I've got grandchildren and children who waste an incredible amount of time on their cell phone, doing things that have nothing to do with the educational process, sharing notes with people, and I just know that an awful lot of time is wasted. And I have a feeling that if in classrooms, it would be hard to be reassured that all those students are using those phones in a productive manner. That's just my thing.
And that's why I think it's important to learn, to teach them how.
So it sounds like several things came up good. The education committee, these are topics that should be kicked around at the education committee meetings to be able to have one. Even the fact that how we improve our media coverage of the events throughout the school should be at the education committee, so that you can talk about how you can do more things like what Frank's talking about, or have students that are in these English classes and all kind of classes, write up the notes and things and help pass off the stuff. Those are things that we should be doing in the education committee. And whoever is running that, I sure hope we take the bullet and run with it. I'll take the ball and run with it.
Whatever. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else like to put in their 2 cents?
Tim,
Yes.
talk about the legislative breakfast that was poorly attended. Okay, and there's another one coming up.
Oh.
Well,
Yeah.
they really want to have one for April, so I don't know if that's been set yet, but.
Yeah.
April 29th, I think, is it? April 29th, it's tentatively scheduled at the CDC, 8 a.m. to 9:30 in the CDC Assembly Room.
Okay.
Thank you, Fran. Anything else?
Breakfast has bacon and eggs at those meetings, so I'd just like to put that in.
Yes.
It wasn't, he's calling it legislative breakfast, we called it coffee and conversation. So.
That's right. Anything of importance to bring up? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Don't have an executive session.
No.
No, nothing on here.